Carl Azus. Welcome to CNN Student News. It's a new week. It's our last week of 2013, and it starts with Nelson Mandela. The former South African leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner died on December 5th. When that happened, the country's current president declared 10 days of national mourning. South Africa held a memorial service. Mandela's body lay in state for 3 days, and finally a funeral and burial in the village where Mandela grew up.
On the hills overlooking Mandela's childhood home and burial site, a truly unique moment. Zulus in traditional warrior clothing drove 7 hours to bid farewell to the hero that transformed this nation. Chants and dances reserved for a chief.
If Madiba as a chief, when he's passed away, you must do it as our culture.
This is really quite incredible. It's almost surreal. Traditional Zulu song and chant. The audio of that blending with the marching band that we can hear from the speakers in front of the screen as Mandela's coffin is being moved towards his final resting place.
The people gathered somber, silent as they watched, some choosing to stand alone. And with the final gun salute, the reality that Mandela is gone, for some, overwhelming. Beauty Makuna traveled 12 hours to be here.
We're upset, people were, at least, even if he was no longer in public, whatever, but at least we're happy that he was still alive.
Others emotional, but glad he can finally rest in peace. And among all, a profound sense of gratitude for all Mandela sacrificed and stood for.
We're talking about Tata. It means Tata is no more. He is gone for good. We don't know whether South Africa will be the same like it was yesterday.
Mandela has finally returned home, the country united as it says goodbye. And now it must live up to its savior's legacy. Arwa Damon, CNN, Kunu, South Africa.
We've also been talking recently about political protests in Ukraine. Some people in the country think Ukraine should be more aligned with Russia. Others think it should have closer ties to the European Union. Most of the recent protests have been from people on the pro-European Union side. They've been calling for changes in their government. And yesterday, they heard some support from an American lawmaker.
We are here to support your just cause. The sovereign right of Ukraine to determine its own destiny freely and independently. To all Ukrainians, America stands with you.
The other side is out in the streets too. This rally is to keep the country closer to Russia. Nick Payton-Walsh talked with some of the protesters about why they don't want to be connected to the European Union.
If we have closer ties to the European Union, this woman says, our factories in the east will be closed. We'll be penniless.
This all started when Ukraine's president refused to make a trade agreement with the European Union. Last week, he said he would sign the deal. Now the EU says the deal's on hold because they don't believe Ukraine's president is showing a clear commitment.
It's time for the shout-out. What country's flag is this? If you think you know it, then shout it out. Is it the flag of Turkey, Vietnam, Cuba, or China? You've got 3 seconds. Go. China's red flag features 1 large yellow star and 4 smaller yellow stars. And this one is on the move. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
It's on the move because that thing it's attached to in the picture is a lunar rover. It's called the Jade Rabbit. It has 6 wheels, 4 cameras, 2 legs, and as it digs around on the moon, China is hoping it will help the country make more of a name for itself in space and on Earth.
China's Jade Rabbit lunar rover is now exploring the moon. This vehicle detached itself from the larger Chang'e 3 lunar probe in the early hours of Sunday, Beijing time. Now, the probe itself made an historic soft, unmanned landing on the moon Saturday night, Beijing time, and it now puts China as the 3rd country to accomplish this technological feat, coming after the U.S. and Russia.
It landed on the moon. Chang'e 3 is on the moon.
And we saw scenes of scientists from China's space agency celebrating, embracing each other at the moments that lunar probe made its successful landing on the moon. Now, one of the missions of this lunar probe, which is partially solar powered, it's a 6-wheeled vehicle weighing about 140 kilograms. One of its missions is to explore a part of the moon known as the Sinus Iridum, or the Bay of Rainbows. It's also tasked with looking beneath the surface of the moon using ground-penetrating radar, in part to search for possible valuable mineral deposits. Now, some experts tell CNN that they think the Chinese may be looking at the possibility of future prospecting and mining missions to the moon. The Chinese acknowledge that their space program is decades behind the US and Russia, for example, but this does seem to be a part of a much bigger strategy that also involves establishing China's own global positioning system of satellites around the Earth, and also building its own manned space station. And that's very significant, because if everything goes according to plan, when the International Space Station is decommissioned in 2020, in the subsequent decade, it will be the Chinese that will have the only manned space station orbiting around the Earth. Ivan Watson, CNN, Beijing.
An incredible story out of Austin, Texas. Elmer Hill and Richard Overton never met before last Friday, but 70 years ago, they were on the same battlefield in World War II. Both men are 107 years old, the oldest known living American veterans of that war. Hill and Overton say that shared experience left them with a lot to talk about, even if it's sometimes hard to say.
Something in that army, what you went through, you will never forget. But you don't want to tell it. You don't got so much to tell. It's too much to tell. You can't tell it all.
We hear from a lot of you Wildcats out there, and today's roll call is full of them. First up, we're heading to Ocala, Florida for the Wildcats from Forest High. Then it's over to Oklahoma and the Piedmont High School Wildcats. And California is our last stop on this Wildcat journey. The Brawley Union High School Wildcats close out today's roll. Before the city of La Jolla, California had its annual Christmas parade last week, one group was fighting to change the tradition. Not the fact that there's a parade, but the fact that it's called a Christmas parade. Howard Singer says the name and the presence of Santa Claus give it religious undertones that he wants removed.
We would like it to be changed to something like the La Jolla Community Parade or the La Jolla Festival, and that's with ALL at the end, so all are welcome.
The event's chairwoman, Ann Kerr Bosch, says the parade is inclusive and that most of La Jolla wants to keep it and the Christmas title just as they are.
We have people of all religions in it. We do not exclude anybody. We've had Muslim webmasters, Islamic float winners, Jewish marshals, but we don't ask what your religion is. It's a community event. It's a U.S. government holiday since 1870.
The Christmas parade was held as scheduled and titled. The man fighting it says he'll try again next year to get the name changed. What do you think? It's what we're discussing today on our blog at cnnstudentnews.com. If you're at least 13, give us your opinion of the La Jolla Christmas Parade debate. And if you're already on Facebook, you can comment at facebook.com/cnnstudentnews. In Southern California, you don't see snow or ice too often, so an igloo sighting is even more rare. Of course, this one isn't made out of blocks of snow or ice. It's made out of milk jugs, 1,700 milk jugs. The people who built it collected their empty jugs and asked friends and family to do the same thing. They say they still need around 150 more to make that archway for the front. Of course, you know how they kept all those milk jugs in place. They're all iglooed together. Still, 1,700 containers is a lot to juggle, but if it works out, the builders will be very happy. It's going to put today's show on ice. I'm Carl Azus. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.